From Baker Mayfield actually being the first overall pick, to Ryan Shazier walking out to announce the Steelers pick, and then all the way to Lamar Jackson being the final pick, the first round of the 2018 NFL Draft did not disappoint. As expected, my mock drafts were mostly flops, but you know, mock drafts are less accurate than March Madness brackets, so there's that. Before we get started, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe because you're clearly an NFL fan, and this channel is all about the greatest sport on earth. Let's get into these picks. We didn't even make it one pick in before a shocker. The rumors started floating about Baker Mayfield being the pick a couple days before the draft, but they were kinda hard to believe. The guys at Pro Football Focus have been on Team Baker all along, but it's hard to think that he was truly a first overall pick material because NFL teams have traditionally hated small quarterbacks. It was cool to see John Dorsey look past the measurables and select the guy that passed the eye test and seemed like the best overall quarterback on the field. This one blew my mind. I know that all the signs were pointing toward it, but the Giants basically spent multiple first round picks on a running back. Don't get me wrong, he's got potential to be really good, but Eli is 37 years old and hasn't looked good in a while, and the O-line is shit. They really should have maneuvered some kind of trade down in my opinion, but this is one where we're gonna have to wait and see how it translates in the fall because it still doesn't make much sense to me. This was such a ballsy trade up for the Jets, and it paid off in spades. The Jets got potentially the best quarterback prospect in the draft with a high ceiling and lands in a spot that has been deprived of good, consistent quarterback play since Chad Pennington. Darnold has to be thrilled with this too because he joins a solid roster and doesn't have to start immediately. The Sam Darnold and Josh Allen rivalry should be fun to watch in the AFC East, especially after Tom Brady retires, and hopefully they both have long NFL careers. This was the first pick where I knew we were in for a wild ride. I don't know why the Browns made the selection at number 4, and I know this isn't Madden, so trading down isn't as simple as making the numbers work, but the Browns must have really liked Ward, and the fact that he's local product probably factored in too. Ward fills a big need, but a good pass rush makes average cornerbacks look like all pros, and Myles Garrett and Bradley Chubb would have provided that. I didn't expect Bradley Chubb to be available for the Broncos, but it makes a lot of sense for them to take the best pass rusher in the draft. He pairs up with Von Miller for a duo similar to what I envisioned if the Browns had taken him. Drafting for need will get you in trouble, but there was a player of equal talent in Quenton Nelson that also filled more of a need. This was the safest player in the draft for me, and the only pick I really saw coming. Assuming Andrew Luck comes back, he'll be happy to finally see some protection brought in. This is going to transform the Colts offensive line, and they will finally be able to run the ball more consistently behind Nelson. I still can't believe that the most pro-ready quarterback in the draft fell to number 7, and when the Bills traded up to take a quarterback, they picked the biggest boom or bust player in the draft. The only thing saving the initial grade of this pick is the fact that the Bills did not have to give up their 22nd overall pick. Maybe the Bills are the ones that reported the racist tweets from Allen while in high school, but that was just speculation from Adam Schefter. At least he's going to a place where, never mind, let's just move on. I figured the Bears were going to draft a linebacker to get back to their roots, but I assumed it was going to be Tremaine Edmunds. Roquan Smith seems like he'd be a better fit for an indoor team that plays on a fast track, but I'll be interested to see how Vic Fangio uses him. This was another surprise pick. It's crazy how different teams value these players versus fans and analysts. This was a smart pick though, you've got to protect your investment in Jimmy G. I've been talking down the Cardinals quarterback situation all offseason, and they just had the best fortune imaginable happen to them. The most pro-ready quarterback in the draft fell to number 10, and they jumped up to snag him. Now Sam Bradford doesn't have to play a snap for the Cardinals and is relegated to backup duties. He should be a great mentor regarding what not to do to avoid injuries, which was really the biggest knock on Rosen. The Dolphins do have a need at cornerback, and Rashad Jones can't play forever, so Minkah Fitzpatrick has potential to play wherever the Dolphins feel like is his best fit. But when it comes down to being just a straight up football player, Fitzpatrick is a top 5 player in this draft, so the Dolphins got a steal. The Bucs passed on one of my favorite players in this draft, and a player that they were heavily linked to at number 7 in Derwin James. Vita was a surprise here, but the Bucs must have absolutely loved him next to Gerald McCoy. This is really going to help their edge rushers get free, and honestly, it's hard to poke holes in this move. The Redskins really must have been banking on Vita to fix their run defense, so for them to settle for the second best nose tackle is a little bit disappointing. Payne has a high ceiling, but I don't think he was ever worth the 13th pick in this draft. When I saw that the Saints had traded up with the Packers, I was really hyped because I was assuming it was for Lamar Jackson, and I have been preaching how awesome it would be for Lamar Jackson and Sean Payton to pair up. But when I found out the Saints gave up next year's first round pick for Marcus Davenport, I could not believe how all in the Saints are for 2019. Drew Brees probably gives this pick an A+, but Davenport has a steep learning curve and the Saints have given up quite a bit for him. The Raiders didn't get a ton back for their trade down, but they felt like securing an offensive tackle for the future was important for them, so taking something to take an offensive tackle in this draft at a more appropriate slot makes sense rather than reaching like the Redskins did. Mike McGlinchey was probably at the top of their board, so they had to settle for the next guy on their board. I'm not a fan of Miller this early, but the trade down earns partial credit. The Bills traded up to secure a leader for their offense, and then they made another move to secure a leader for their defense. Edmunds was a player I never expected to make it out of the top 10, but teams must have shied away due to how raw he is. The Chargers filled a need with a top 5 player in this draft and just allowed him to fall right into their lap. They might have wanted Lamar Jackson, but they could not let Derwin James go here. The Chargers defense is going to be a scary unit in 2018. I wonder if the Seahawks convinced the Packers that they were going to take Jaire Alexander here if they didn't trade up with them. The Packers must have really liked Jaire Alexander. He's going to bring a ton of swag to their secondary and should bring confidence to the entire group. The Cowboys had to be hoping for Derwin James, but Leighton Vander Esch was a predictable pick for them months ago. The reports of potential neck issues made it seem like he might fall, but the Cowboys must have really liked him at 19. LVE, that's what we're calling him now, can be their new middle linebacker and allow Jalen Smith to play the Sam and Sean Lee to play the Will, and now their linebacker core is no longer a weakness. I actually called this one on my Cowboys 7-round mock draft, so go check that out when you're done here. When in doubt, build in the trenches. The Lions were probably hoping for Marcus Davenport, but this pick makes sense from where Matt Patricia comes from. There were some other center guard prospects available that were expected to go before Ragnow, but there are some guys that really love Ragnow, and the Lions must see similar traits in him. The Bengals were probably laughing at the Lions pick because they probably had Billy Price as one of the center guard prospects rated higher than Ragnow. Billy Price was made for the Bengals. He's a mauler with some attitude and should really help get their running game back on track. This is another scenario where I think the Ravens basically held Rashaan Evans hostage for a team that they knew were interested in trading up for him. Evans also might have been taken by the Patriots with the following pick. Mike Vrabel taking a linebacker was a predictable move, but I expected it to be Harold Landry at this point. The Patriots turned in the pick with tackle listed as Isaiah Wynn's position, so they may see him as a replacement for Nate Solder. Wynn played offensive tackle for Georgia, so he can play the position, but he's built like a guard and the assumption was that he was going to move inside in the NFL. He's definitely got versatility and Bill Belichick loves that in his offensive linemen, so this pick makes a lot of sense. The Panthers got a Steve Smith clone for Cam Newton, and I absolutely love the pick. It makes sense for Moore to be the top wide receiver taken because he is such a beast with the ball in his hands. I expect him to be their wide receiver 1 sooner than later. The Ravens got an A here because they filled a need and traded down not once but twice. Late 20s is a much more appropriate place for a tight end in this draft. Hayden Hurst wasn't my favorite tight end in this draft, but I'm going to trust Ozzie Newsome in his final draft. The Falcons are in win now mode, and adding such a polished wide receiver to an already stacked offense was an unexpected move, but the Falcons roster is just so stacked they were in a position to make a luxury pick like this. Let's just hope that Julio Jones's weird social media behavior this week is completely unrelated. I gotta say, I really appreciate the Seahawks for giving me a good laugh with this one. John Schneider and Pete Carroll must be overvaluing their roster here because they are not in position to take a running back this early. They don't have a running back problem, they have an offensive line problem. Penny was expected to go in the second round, but never ahead of guys like Darius Guice. And the knock on Rashad Penny is that he's not even good in pass protection. I hate to say it, Seahawks fans, but I think there are dark times ahead. First of all, the most amazing moment at the draft was Ryan Shazier walking out to announce the Steelers pick. For a moment there, I was worried that he was about to announce his replacement, but the Steelers chose to address the strong safety position instead. When I saw that both Edmunds brothers were at the draft, I figured Terrell was just there to support Tremaine, because I was not expecting him to go in the first round at all. I love his size, and I wonder if he's still going to play some nickel linebacker for the Steelers. The Jaguars added a beast to their already dominant defense. The front 7 rotation there should help them maintain their level of play going into 2018, and it gives them a defensive tackle to develop in case Calais Campbell or Malik Jackson start to decline due to age. The Vikings are so good at this. They draft to fill needs before they actually become needs. Mike Hughes has off-field concerns, but his talent is definitely worth the pick here. The Patriots are not one to typically take a running back this early in the draft, but they've obviously seen what we all saw last season. The question with Michel and the Patriots is, will he be carrying a full load, or did they just use a first-round pick on a rotational running back? They also pair up the Georgia teammates, which is cool for them. I always think having a college teammate has to help a rookie transition to the NFL. Ozzie Newsome traded 3 times in his final first-round draft and went out with a bang. I was so worried for Lamar Jackson that he was going to have to sit through another day of uncertainty for his future. The guy is clearly a first-round talent. With no guaranteed money on his contract after 2018, Joe Flacco's time is coming to a close. And it makes even more sense now why they signed RG3 to have a backup with a similar skill set for their future offensive scheme they'll be installing. I knew the Eagles wanted to get out of this pick and that a team would be willing to pay to get the 5th-year option, and it's perfect for Lamar Jackson because they're going to need a year or two to get him ready. Grading the first round of the draft immediately after it takes place doesn't have anything to do with the long-term impact of a player selected due to their respective teams. These instant reaction grades are based more around how NFL teams reacted to what took place in the allotted time per pick and how prepared they were for when things got flipped on their head from the way you expected things going in. Basically, after plan A might have fallen through for a team, how much time did they spend on plans B, C, D, etc.? Mock drafts are fun for fans, but NFL front offices use them internally to see how they can play the draft to make sure the right pieces fall in place for them. But we also need to grade picks immediately following the draft, because when a team reaches on Joe linebacker while he's having his third All-Pro season in as many years, it's good to have an archive reference point of where our mindsets were in 2018. If you guys watched this whole video, you are officially NFL draft nerds, so type hashtag draft nerds in the comments below. Also hit like and subscribe because I love making draft videos and I'd love for you guys to be a part of the ride. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.